Hello and welcome to the debate on France24. I'm Andrea Sankey in Paris. Tonight, still in need of a nominee. Another 6 U.S. states to go, and there's no guarantee that a presidential candidate for the Democratic Party will even be declared by then. With the numbers against her, Hillary Clinton has decided to hold on following a narrow win in the Indiana primary. It was not the Obama momentum-breaking win her supporters had hoped for, but Clinton says it's more than enough to go full speed ahead toward the White House. Meanwhile, Barack Obama leads in delegates and popular votes, but some are questioning whether he has the essential backing of the big states and the swing states that could decide the presidential election. So tonight, I'll be asking our panelists what they think. Does Hillary Clinton have enough support to continue her campaign? And if the race goes all the way to the convention, what will it mean for the Democratic Party? Just a few of the questions I'll put to our panel tonight. And joining me here in the studio to my right, Christopher Story, Assistant Professor of American Studies at the École Polytechnique in Paris. Here to my left, Chip Seward, former President of Democrats Abroad France and a Hillary Clinton delegate. Joining us via satellite from Washington, D.C., Amy Kaufman, Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute. And from San Francisco, California, Astro Teller, CEO of Cerebellum Capital. Thanks all so much for joining us tonight. Let me begin here in the studio to my right. Christopher, technically she has lived to fight another round, but do you think Hillary Clinton should stay in this race?
Well, I think there are two ways to look at this. One way is to say you've had record numbers of people voting in every single primary. And the primaries are to prepare for November. So if we keep getting record numbers of people voting, why not have her continue? As far as it being divisive, I'm not convinced of that. But you could say that it does hamper Senator Obama from starting his race against Senator McCain. So there are two ways to look at it.
Okay, Chip.
Well, I don't think Senator Clinton should withdraw. I agree that the effect of this rather prolonged process has been to bring out a lot of new voters, and I think that's all to the good. Each state has counted, which is the first time that's really happened since maybe 1964, or maybe even earlier than that. One of the criticisms one frequently hears, you must hear it quite a lot, of American politics is the apparent indifference of voters to major presidential elections. That certainly has not been the case this year. No. And I think the primary process, for all its faults, has contributed largely to that effect. The voters, the people who have actually voted in the primaries, don't particularly seem to want the process to stop because they refuse to deliver a knockout punch in favor of either candidate. What they really seem to vote for, as has been said in other fora, is a continuation of the process right down to the wire. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that both candidates should stay in the race and continue to debate each other and continue to go to the people, to go to the voters, to go to the party members, and solicit their views. Yeah.
Okay, Amy in Washington, D.C. So each state's votes have counted. Is that something to celebrate?
Well, of course it's something to celebrate, that you always want to feel that your vote matters. But I think at this point, Hillary Clinton's best chance is if she can get this to the convention. I think that she knows that she's going to lose this state by state in the delegate count. Where she could actually win this is on the floor of the convention, in a broker convention. And I think it's to her best interest to keep this going as long as possible.
Right, because she really does need landslide victories in the last 6 states if she's going to actually come forward on or win this round.
Oh, no, I think that even if she loses them, if she can get this to the convention, that means it gives her an extra 3-4 months. That means the more that people start finding out about Senator Obama works to her benefit. She has brought out so much information that has dragged his numbers down. I think her plan is, if she can keep this going, she actually might have a chance of swaying the power brokers at the convention and swaying some delegates as well.
Okay, I mean, but Amy, before Astra, I'll get to the same question with you as well. But I mean, Amy, do you think though that could genuinely build some resentment among Democratic Party voters who, if Barack Obama comes out with the popular vote and the delegate count, and Hillary takes it with the superdelegate round, would that leave some sour tastes?
I think no matter who at this point wins, their supporters are going to be soured. I think if Barack Obama is the nominee, despite what Mrs. Clinton said last night, I think a lot of her supporters are not going to basically do all they can for Senator Obama. I think that some of them will go to the polls and vote for him, yes, but I think for the most part, he is not going to gain all of her supporters. In fact, there have been polls that have said this. If he is the nominee, I think that he will be able to take forth a lot of the more liberal side of the Democratic Party, but I think a lot of those middle ground people will go to John McCain. And if she is the nominee, I think that there's going to be a problem in terms of his supporters going and voting for her after all that they feel that she's done against him.
Okay, Astro in San Francisco, your opinion, should Hillary Clinton stay in this race?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with the other panelists and say I'd like to see the Clinton campaign withdraw as gracefully as is possible at this point. And here's the reason. The reason is that the Clinton campaign has increasingly, gradually, but increasingly become, I think, a little disingenuous in how they've positioned their opponent in an attempt to gain ground, while their opponent has not, that is Barack Obama. And I think it's doing slow but gradual damage to the Democratic Party. We're losing the moral high ground as we see the Clinton campaign doing many of the things the Democratic voters were so horrified to watch Bush do in the last election. It's a very gradual process, but I'm quite disturbed by it. The other thing that is related to that is I agree with you that if we got to the convention and the superdelegates decided in favor of Hillary Clinton in the face of Barack Obama having the popular support from the states and the delegates that had been elected by those states, it would be really ugly. And in fact, it would look a lot like what happened in Florida 8 years ago with Bush in his first election, so to speak. And I think that would be bad for all of us.
Okay. I mean, Christopher, do you...
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Completely agree. I think there's a founding myth of the last 20 years or so. But I mean, this idea that we've been robbed. And I think it would be terrible for the superdelegates to turn around and do somewhat of the same thing that happened in Florida in 2000. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think we should distinguish between...
You don't think it's going to happen? Why? I mean, if it goes to the superdelegate round, that looks like what will happen. Hillary Clinton leads, you know, by over a dozen superdelegates.
Okay, well, the superdelegate round may be in June. It may not be in August. And if you look at the superdelegates, it's the party professionals, the people in the DNC, they're the ones who have been supporting Hillary. But if you look at the governors, the members of Congress, they're overwhelmingly supporting Senator Obama. And that's because they know that he is a candidate who brings people out to vote, brings new voters. He's the future of the party. And so it would be somewhat suicidal, it seems to me, for them to turn around and give Mrs. Clinton the nomination.
Chip, do you have feelings on that? The potential for resentment that could be built should Hillary Clinton take the superdelegate round? And,
the potential is obviously there. I think a lot will depend on how it's on how the process is managed. I think that it's quite conceivable that the process could be managed in a way which doesn't do a lot of damage. That will basically depend upon how the DNC functions, how Howard Dean functions, and how the superdelegates themselves function. I don't really think that the analogy is accurate with Florida, because in Florida you basically had an electoral process that was not allowed to go to its full completion because of a Supreme Court decision. Everybody understands what the process. Well, I won't say that because a lot of people don't. But I mean, everybody knows what the rules are as far as delegate selection is concerned, and how they're supposed to work within the Democratic Party. And if that process and if those rules are followed, then nobody can really complain about the nomination being stolen. The superdelegates, and the reason why they were created in the first place, are supposed to vote on the basis of their best judgment of who would make the best or better nominee. They can take, and they probably should take, not probably, but they definitely should take into account the way the primaries have gone, the way the popular vote has gone, and so forth. But at the end of the day, they have to make a decision based on broader concerns of the party itself and the chances of winning the general election in November. And when they move to that level, they then have to look at where the two candidates have done best. And they will quickly realize that, for example, Senator Clinton has done best in all of the states that the Democrats must carry in order to win the general election in November. In other words, the large industrial states of the Northeast plus California, with perhaps a shot at carrying Texas and Florida as well.
All right. Let me ask Astro what you think about that. I mean, does it give you any comfort to hear that, we can expect the superdelegates to really vote responsibly and according to what really is best for the presidential election outcome? Go ahead.
Well, I certainly agree with the assessment that they would be doing their job to vote their own perspective. My point was not that the process would actually be broken, but that people would feel very, very deeply that the process had been broken. Whether or not it actually had been is irrelevant. And I want to respond to something that just got said about Senator Clinton taking these states that need to be taken. I don't seriously believe that if the Clinton campaign withdrew and Barack Obama was the next nominee for the President of the United States, that California would elect John McCain. I just don't think that's reasonable. And when you look at what happened last night in Indiana, I mean, Hillary Clinton won by 20,000 votes in Indiana. This is not a landslide victory, and I just don't see how we actually have good evidence that if she was gone, admittedly, all of her supporters are not going to rush to Senator Obama, but I don't think that we have good evidence that somehow, because she has, in many cases, been mildly victorious. In Pennsylvania, which was hailed as one of her big victories, it was 55-45. This is significantly less than he just won in North Carolina. So I just don't see how we're being set up for a fall by having him.
If you do the numbers, Pennsylvania, in terms of electoral votes, is far more important than North Carolina. And most of the states about which we're talking, and let's not forget the state in which I vote, the great state of Michigan, which is sort of like sleeping out there waiting to waiting to explode.
Have the votes count, yeah.
Those states are, if you looked at their electoral composition, New York State is very similar. They have a core Democratic constituency in one part of the state. In Michigan, it happens to be the Southeast. In New York, of course, it's the downstate voters. But the rest of the state is very conservative. Upstate New York, Western Michigan, Northern Michigan are all very conservative areas, and those states are quite unpredictable. Michigan has elected lots of Republican governors, none of whom I thought was particularly competent, but they've elected them anyway. Just as they have occasionally Democrat elected, and the key state, which in many respects are 2 or 3 key states which will determine the outcome. Ohio was one, which we lost, both in 2000 and 2004, maybe by trickery, but we still lost them, and Missouri.
You know what, we're down to just our last few minutes for this half of the program, so there was just one question I wanted to get to before we close. Christopher, you talked a little bit about the fact that it's okay if Hillary Clinton continues in the campaign because you don't feel it would actually exactly prove divisive. My question following off that is, can she actually continue in the campaign knowing that her finances are nearing bankruptcy? And let me ask Amy actually about this. Will she have the means, the financial means, to continue for the coming months?
Well, that remains to be seen. As we all found out this morning, she lent her campaign an additional $6 million in the last month or so. So she has actually lent close to $12 million to the campaign personally. Whether she can raise this from her supporters is another question. Barack Obama has proved that he can constantly bring in new money, perhaps in small denominations, but still he's constantly bringing this in through his fundraising and through the internet. She has not shown that she has the same resources to go back to constantly and to tap. So that will be a problem for her if she wants to continue going for the next few months.
Christopher.
I think that's one more reason why the superdelegates look at the Obama campaign and see it's been extraordinarily successful, and the Clinton campaign has been rather disappointing.
Well, except that, again, I think you have to look at what's going to happen. The general election is going to be a completely new ballgame when it gets underway after Labor Day. The fundraising mechanism will be starting all over again. And the real question is, and I mean, what Senator Obama has done is quite admirable, and nobody, certainly none of us among the Clinton supporters, will gainsay his contribution. And I think it's absolutely critical, and I think it has contributed mightily to the vitality of our party. Everybody's watching what's going on in our party, and nobody else is watching what's going on the other side.
I'm unfortunately going to have to interrupt you at this point, because now we really do need to take a 12-minute break now for news and weather. But we will continue this discussion, pick up on that point after that time. So do stay with us. Welcome back to the debate on France 24, where we have been discussing the U.S. Democratic primary race still ongoing, in which Hillary Clinton has vowed to stay. And joining me again in the studio here to continue the discussion, to my right, Christopher Story, Assistant Professor of American Studies at the École Polytechnique in Paris. Here to my left, Chip Seward, former president of Democrats abroad in France and a Hillary Clinton delegate. Joining us via satellite from Washington, D.C., Amy Kaufman, Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute. And from San Francisco, California, Astro Teller, CEO of Cerebellum Capital. Thanks all so much for joining us again. Before we went to break, we had started to discuss the issue of, yes, Hillary Clinton is very determined to stay in the race, but there's a question about whether or not she can actually afford to. She's had to plead for more support, more donations, and the question is, how much longer can she really continue if she doesn't get a serious cash injection fast? So, Chip, quickly finish what you were arguing.
No, I was simply saying that as far as the general election is concerned, the fundraising process starts all over again. And the people who are big contributors, who have been largely the ones who've contributed to the Clinton campaign, will be eligible again to contribute up to, I guess it's the maximum of $2,300 per person. So those people are going to be rather important to raising money to deal with the money-generating machine that the Republican Party usually turns into in these
So you
contests.
have real confidence in the Clinton fundraising mechanisms post, if she wins the nomination. More so than Barack Obama, you don't think he'd be as capable of?
Hard to say. He's such an unknown quantity, it's hard to say. He's been very successful, and he's done something extremely innovative and creative in the way he's raised money for his primary campaign. I don't know whether that can be repeated in the general election.
But can you imagine her raising enough money now, though, to continue for the next 6 races?
Yes, I think she will.
You think she will? Are you that confident in her, Christopher?
Our discussion is sort of premised on the idea that this race isn't over, and I will say I think the race is over. There are reasons she may want to continue, but I think the race is basically over. And we're not looking at if we say it's over, the narrative is Hillary Clinton started as the front runner. She was way ahead of everyone else. She had more money than anyone else. Everyone expected her to win. And the story is that she lost. And in every single primary, she was way ahead in the polls beforehand, and in the states that she won, she barely won. In many other states, she lost her lead. She's out of money. She's had to fire people in her campaign. It's not. That's the story.
Well, now what if Florida and Michigan delegates are reseated?
Well, if you take Florida and Michigan, that's an example of Hillary Clinton rewriting the rules, using the rules to her advantage, which is what she wants to do to some extent in August. We've started off with that point, that she's waiting. Somehow she'll be able to find that escape latch and win this